great to have the seniors and get to spend a little bit of time with them before they move on from Penn State. Hopefully they're able to come back and enjoy Penn State football as alumni, and we're going to work very hard to make those people proud. I thought we had a good spring. We got a lot of work in. We got a lot installed on offense, defense, and special teams. We invested a lot of time on special teams, something that we believe in can be a differentiator for us. We stayed for the most part pretty healthy, which is important, and identified some strengths and weaknesses moving into the summer. So, I thought it was a great spring. It was really good having the fans out there. It's something that we've talked about, possibly, doing moving forward, a Friday night practice with some fan capacity under normal circumstances would be great in addition to our normal spring game. So, before we know it, we're going to blink and we're going to be, open in training camp and getting ready for our first game. So I thought we got a lot out of spring ball, and we'll do player evaluations now. I'll meet with every single player on the team as well as their position coaches, give them the feedback that they need, the things they need to work on between now and training camp, and go from there. So, again, appreciate the opportunity. Open up to questions.
And then we'll go to Mark Brennan, then we'll go to Ben Jones.
James, along the lines of what you were just saying, who are some of the guys who
Mark,
have made
start over?
Yeah, you have me now?
In the beginning. Yeah, you weren't on in the beginning when you first started talking.
Okay. Hey, along the lines of what you were just saying, could you identify some of the guys who have made the most improvement for you throughout the spring? Thank you.
Yeah, that's always hard to do because when I say a couple and leave some others off, there's some hurt feelings and things like that. But, I think the thing that jumps out to me is I think Castro Fields had a really good spring, but he's also at a point in his career where you expect that from him. So a lot of times with me, it's the guys that either took significant steps from their freshman to sophomore year or whatever it may be, or it's guys that we didn't know as much about, like guys that came in early or some of the transfer guys. Those are the people that probably jump out. Elsden is a guy that came to camp multiple times to get an offer, an in-state player. And the thing I thought he did this spring, which is probably one of the things that we had a question on, was he was running sideline to sideline, making plays. He looked very quick, looked fast, looked explosive. He's a guy that probably jumped out, probably made as much strides as anybody. Obviously, some of the young players that we've talked about a lot, and Kalen King had a really strong spring. I think Brisker, it is obvious that he came back for a reason. He's so positive right now. He's so coachable. I've been very, very pleased with him. So there's a number of guys like that on offense. On defense. On offense, Parker playing as a true freshman and being able to build on that. He's a guy that I think has flashed. Kevon Lee is just so much more confident right now going into his second year. I think Mike Miranda has a chance to have a really good year for us. He's flashed, as well as Rashid. I think Rashid's another guy that came back for a reason, and his maturity and his positive attitude and his perspective now is much different. I'm really proud of him. So there's a number of guys like that. And then on special teams, we got a group of veteran specialists that are returning that we anticipate having big years for us. It's going to be an important summer for them.
Ben Jones, then Corey Geiger.
James, when you look at different positions, it can be easy to develop a running back or a receiver over the course of a career exponentially. What makes quarterback development that much harder to have a guy go from point A to point B over the course of his career?
Well, there's just so many more things on their plate, and they also can be impacted more than any other position by the people that are around them. So the offensive line is going to impact those guys. The receivers obviously are going to impact those guys, the tight ends. So, having a strong supporting cast around your quarterback is going to make a difference. Obviously, if you have a receiver like we did here for a long time, that everybody in the league was scared of. You have one guy like that, it makes a difference. When you have two, then it really makes an impact, and especially if you have one at tight end and so on and so forth. So the complementary pieces are a big part of that. Obviously the consistency in the coaching staff and the scheme factors into that as well. But I do also think you could make an argument, having a couple different coaches, we all have strengths and weaknesses, and you can learn the best things from each person that you've worked with. And I've been pleased with Sean this spring. And I've been pleased with Taquan and Christian as well. But between now and spring, there's a lot that needs to get worked on. But I think that's one of the probably exciting things at the quarterback position. You can work on that. You can throw routes on air all summer. You can do one-on-ones against the DBs all summer. You can do 7-on-7, player-led 7-on-7s all summer. You can go back on defense and watch all of our film from last year and watch all of spring and review that. Our offensive guys and the quarterbacks can go back and watch all Texas's film last year and our film from last year and learn from those things. So there's a lot that can be done that's player-led and player-driven between now and training camp, and the quarterbacks as well as everybody need to do that.
Corey Geiger and then Nubias Wilborn.
James, this is looking forward. How are you? There's discussion about limiting things in fall camp, limiting padded practices, limiting, the Oklahoma drill, getting rid of it. How would that impact things going forward for you? What are the pros and cons?
Yeah, I think for us, what I'm most concerned about is that there's a standardized rule across the country and everybody follows those rules. Getting into the particulars, I think, we made some rule changes a few years ago based on data that wasn't there. So I just think we need to make sure that the changes we're making are making for the right reasons, and we have the data to back it up. And I think we also have to understand what rules in the NFL are in place because of player safety and player health, and what is part of the collective bargaining agreement with the players and what they want. And a lot of it may come off as health and safety related, but that's really not what it is. So I think at the end of the day, the coaches that I know and the coaches that I've worked with and the programs I've been around, you're not going to run drills that are high-risk drills. No one's doing the bull in the ring anymore. There's no learning that comes from that. There's nothing to gain from that. If you're running a drill that is a high-risk drill, your trainers and doctors are going to say something to you about that. And the coaches aren't going to do it anyway, because when your players aren't out at practice, they're not getting better, and you're not getting better. So I think it's important that, before these rules are made and these decisions are made, that you have doctors and you have trainers and you have coaches and you have administrators and you have all these people in the room at the same time, players as well, and get all these different perspectives before we make changes.
Nubias Wilborn and then Neil Rudell.
We haven't seen much of it until today. What have you noticed, not only today, but throughout the spring camp so far? And by the way, thank you for the time today, James.
Yeah, be a little bit of a smart aleck here, Nubias. You guys have only been at 2 practices, so you don't have a lot to work with. But you're right. You're right. He wasn't able to go the last practice you guys were at. He was limited for health reasons. Early on, he was really flashing some things, and we were excited. It's obvious you got a veteran guy. He's been around. He's played a lot of football. Was very respected at the place he came from. So kind of what we thought. He can run. He's got the ability to make people miss. He's got that extra gear that we need, a guy that we think can be a home run threat for us. I think between now and training camp, I think the weight room and putting a little bit more good weight on, so that he can lower his shoulder. Him and Devin, both of those guys lower shoulder and get the ugly 3-4 yards when we need it. But we've been impressed with him. He's a mature guy. Our players really like him. The coaches really like him. He learns well. So we think he's going to be right there in the hunt of this thing during training camp.
Neil Rudell and then Greg Pickle.
Hey, James.
Hey, Neil.
Wondering, do you feel that comfortable at a two deep at the quarterback that Taquan, sort of close that gap, or could you just sort of assess where that is?
Yeah, I think I got asked that question last week, and I don't think a whole lot's changed. I think my answer is still the same. I don't think you're ever comfortable at the quarterback position until those guys have gotten game reps. Obviously, the practice reps are critical and very, very important. But having guys that don't have game reps and haven't played, critical game reps, at significant moments, you're never completely comfortable because you never know how guys are going to react when they get in there. So that was kind of how I answered it last week, and I think my answer is still the same because that hasn't changed. But the work that those guys do between now and game one is going to be really important, and we'd like for that gap to be closed, between our ones and our twos.
Greg Pickle, then Audrey Snyder.
Good evening, James.
Hey, Greg.
What's the plan for the next month and change here? How will you follow the NFL draft? When will the guys get back to work? And how will you and the staff be ready to maximize June and July once the dead period ends?
Yeah, so it's different. Obviously we'd be on the road recruiting. We won't do that. So we'll do individual meetings with all the players. That will be a priority. The other thing is me and Coach Pry will be going to the draft to support Micah. And then, this extra week of spring ball that we had, I guess I shouldn't say extra based on the calendar. We went a week longer than we had anticipated. So it kind of took up one of our what's the term I'm looking for? Thank you, Kevin. It took one of our discretionary weeks. So now, we'll have another discretionary week in the summer, which is a true voluntary period for the players. Obviously, the players finishing strong academically with finals, and then obviously getting into our summer school, summer preparation, running, lifting, 7-on-7s, those types of things, coaches. Meetings. I think we get 2 hours a meeting in an 8-hour week or whatever it may be like that. So we'll take advantage of those while also, running our summer camps, our summer 7-on-7 with high school programs, and trying to balance all that at the same time with official visits, predominantly on the weekends for those 4 weekends in the month of June. And then try to get a little bit of time in July with our families before we get right back in the thick of things.
Got time for 2 more questions. We'll start with Audrey Snyder, and the final question will go to Andrew Callista.
Kevin's voice came from behind the curtain.
Hey, James.
Hey, Audrey.
I'm wondering if you guys were able to get any live work from Jesse Lucchetta this spring, and where are you at with that middle linebacker competition with he and Ellis Briggs?
Yeah, we view both of them as starters for us. They will both be starters for us. At the linebacker position, whether it's Mike linebacker or one of the outside linebacker positions. I think there's also some discussions that we've had with Jesse about playing some other positions as well that we think he has the ability to play, which I think is not only going to help our defense, but is also going to help Jesse in his future at the next level. So there's some of the in-depth conversations that we'll get into in Coach Pry's meeting with Jesse as well as my meeting with Jesse. But we see both of those guys, and having a plan for both of those guys are both experienced, really good football players that we're excited about and are going to have significant roles for us. In terms of live work, no, he was not able to get live work this spring.
Final question to Andrew Callista.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for doing this. you brought up going to the draft to support Micah. We know what he could do athletically. The teams know what he could do on film. What's the one thing that people don't know that he could do, off the field that just jumps out to you that says he's going to be great in the NFL? That teams are going to find out when they take him.
Off the field?
Off the field, whether it's film study, whether it's how he interacts with all the teammates, the leadership, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think, I think the thing that really jumps out with Micah is how well he's able to retain information, how deeply he thinks about subjects like his teammates, like the organization that drafts him. Some of the messages and conversations I've had with Micah over the years, really, really impressive, thoughtful conversations. And I think he's also a guy that loves to compete. Loves to compete. And I think whenever the periods in practice or the drills are competitive in nature, he brings a different element to your organization, something that always jumped out. And I don't care. He's I think you guys know he's a guy that loves bowling and things like that. Whatever you do with Micah, he is going to battle and compete like crazy. So I just think, his ability to have fun out at practice, his ability to have fun in meetings, his ability to retain information. I think he brings a little bit of an edge to your defense and to your program. But I think one of the things that he's learned here, which I think is an important lesson that so many players need to learn, is when is it the time to have fun and be silly and mess around and laugh, and when is it a time to lock in and be focused. And Micah has learned that. I think it's an important lesson to learn, something we talk about a lot with our guys, and Micah's in a really good place with that.